If y'all want to take your seats, that'd be awesome. Thanks again for coming out on this beautiful, steamy day here in NYC. My name is Gabe Liberti. I love Touch Designer, and I'm going to talk to you guys about making games in Touch Designer, specifically within the context of a project that I've been working on for the past few years called Game of 1,000 Boxes. So, Game of 1,000 Boxes is an immersive game experience for up to 40 players at the same time. It's all led by a live host. It's made up of a bunch of little mini games that are all sequenced together. So it appeals to like a big range of people, right? It's not necessarily like trivia freaks or gamers. It's all different types of people, different ages. And yeah, part of the way we do that is that we have lots of these little games that we've sequenced together into the one big show. So I think I can quickly like get this going here. Let's see if this loads. Full screen. Play. This is like a projection map space that we have installed at Lightbox, 37th Street, Manhattan. So there they've got 6 projectors. We've got our custom game hardware, the podium hosted. There you can do 8 teams at the same time, so you have 32 people that can play. And it runs every weekend here in NYC. So let's see if I can get back into it. So again, the way it works, there's a podium for each team. Each team can have up to 4 players. Each player gets 1 button. The show can have between 4 and 10 teams that are all going to play together. And then the live host is the one who sort of controls and is like the person who leads you through it. This is our second location that just opened in Dallas, Texas. It's on a 30-foot LED wall. It's part of like a larger entertainment space. So the way that we do this is that we license the game hardware and the IP to operators, and then they install it in their spaces, and then they run it and sell it to the public, and then we get paid off of that. So yeah, just a little bit about like who made this. Me and Dave, we've had a studio called Dave and Gabe. We've been making projects for almost 10 years now. We built all sorts of like audiovisual stuff, a lot of spatial audio things, usually for the marketing world, doing experiential pop-ups and that sort of thing. And really with this project, we were wanting to make a change with how we were doing our work, how we were going to build stuff and grow stuff. And we made a choice that rather than sort of like stepping up to the plate to build a new project every 2 or 3 months, that we wanted to build one thing that we really put a bunch of energy and love into, and then we would try to take that to lots of different places. So we have a really close friend named Josh Knapp, and he was the game designer for The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon for 7 years and also makes game shows for NBC, including That's My Jam, which is like a music TV show. He's also a crossword puzzle for the New York Times and just like a total games freak. So we were always talking about, holy shit, like if we could take what you do with like game show design and with what we do with immersive audiovisual design, we could probably make something really, really insane. So then it sort of became like, all right, well, what are we talking about here? What are we going to have to build to make this possible? So I started to like break it down. Like we're going to need 40 people playing together and splitting them up into 4 different teams. There's maybe a different number of teams that are going to play per show because you don't know how many people are going to show up. There always needs to be a live host that's going to have their own custom UI. We're going to have the show composed of lots of little games. Each one of those games is going to have its own visual system, its own game logic, its own like, whole UI. Different output resolutions because the venues are going to change. We're going to have LEDs in all the podiums. So we need some sort of an LED mapping system, custom show configurations, and we want it to feel snappy and fast, so 60 FPS, of course. So then it came back to this question, like, is Touch Designer a game engine? And the answer is no, but you can do whatever you want in Touch Designer if you are crazy enough, and that is what we decided to do. So just real quick, like, there in 2018, Berlin Touch Summit, Tomasz Miskiewicz, he gave a presentation there about making game show software for like TV game shows, largely in Europe. And Dave and I sort of like stumbled into the talk and we're like, wait, this is amazing. And it was like super inspiring. And we got to be friends with Tomasz. And when we kicked off this project, we had built like a version of it in our garage here at Futurespace in Brooklyn. And when it came time to really build like the production version of it, we went back and we were like, can you work with us and we'll build this together. So Tomasz was like a big part of the whole like engineering behind making the project possible. So yeah, when we were thinking about the actual like the challenge of making something like this in Touch, like you have to think about, okay, how are you going to structure the app, right? Like how are you going to lay everything out and keep it all organized? How are you going to keep track of like the state of the show itself, and then also the state of each individual game, right? Like how many rounds are there, who's in the lead, all that stuff. You've got inputs from the player controllers, sound effects, LEDs. You've got the host and the host controller that's going to control the flow of the system, output mapping, all these things, right? So this is the kind of stuff that we knew we were going to have to come up with when building the project. So I'm just going to talk through a handful of those things as sort of a demonstration of like, yeah, this is how far you can push stuff if you keep it organized and use some sort of tips and tricks along the way. So this is like a high-level view of like the overall scaffolding of the app, right? So like we have a controller that keeps track of the state of the show. We've got LED mapping stuff. You've got the output display for any like projection mapping and that kind of thing. All of these things are they're separate and they've got like their own dedicated functionality, but they do need to talk to each other in some way. And like within the games, for example, we have the functionality broken down again and organized in this like, somewhat coherent, logical way where it's like, okay, each game needs a set of cues that are going to flow. It has special visuals. And I can tab over here to the session. So this is sort of like the top level, and it kind of matches what I was just showing you where, inside of this games base here, you have each of the games that we've designed. Like here's the intro base, and here's Tapper's Delight, which is the first game, and then Lightspeed. And then inside of each of these, you have the visuals base, and you have the lighting, textures and all that stuff. So this is a way that you can try to be as organized as possible with the various functionality of the app. Here's like the output, for example. And on the output, you're going to have the host interface. So this would be the screen that the host is going to see. And this is a touch screen. It has its own little UI that drops down. They have like different controls over resetting the show and changing how many teams can play. So this is a really important thing when you're building an app on this scale, that you can keep stuff pretty organized. And in terms of how you communicate across the app, what we found is like, first of all, having Python extensions be the like lingua franca that's going to tie everything together is a really powerful way to kind of like navigate around the whole session. And the second thing is that you can use the global op shortcuts. I don't know if you guys use this very much, but we found that like that combination, those two things, is really powerful. And I'm going to show you really quickly why. So like in here, this is where we have all the mascot animations, right? So here's the bug, and here's like the eggs. I'll show you the tables. These are the tables, one of the mascots. And then like, I just built like a little interface here with these custom params. So like when the table is winning, he'll get into his like win state. The taunt when he's like on first place, so he's dancing around. Okay, so I've got all this at the top level. And how do I control what's inside of this global op shortcut called mascots? I have a very simple extension here that just describes like a few functions. One is like set the animation state. One is set all the teams to idle, and then one is solo. So if I wanted to change, for example, the animation of the bug, I can just very quickly put this like op.mascots.anim state. And like that was a pretty big game changer for us in terms of like how you can control the functionality. Like if I want to set them to the lose state, I can just change that and then just go to lose, or like, idle, right? Go back and now he's just chilling. And I'll show you kind of like, I can then take that script, and if I go into my LED mapping over here, for example, like I'm still going to be able to control everything that's happening in the mascot space with that same shorthand. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's really efficient. It's a very easy, fast way to be able to say like, okay, I want you to like taunt now, right? And I'm inside, I'm running this script from the LED base, but now the bug is taunting everybody, right? That's pretty awesome. And like, same thing, I've got like a base for all the sound effects, and then I can just run the team sound effects as well. Or if I have those strobes for the LEDs, I can strobe those. So yeah, let me go back. The next thing is, now that we have this functionality and we have the architecture of the app, how are we going to choreograph it and sort of like lead the app through all the things that need to happen? So this is sort of where it became clear that we needed a conductor of the action, basically. And to do that, Tomasz was able to put together this thing that we call the Queue Builder. And this was made using the lister that Ivan has been the architect of. So I can show you sort of like what that looks like. I'll just go full screen on that. Yeah. So in the top left, I have the list of the games that we're going to play within the show. For each of those games, there's a certain type of logic. There's a certain flow of events that are going to get me in and out of that game. And then here is like the flow of rounds and scenes within that particular game. So you can kind of see how it's like nested, right? Where like, if we're looking at a round here, there's going to be a setup event, there's going to be an intro, a ready, a start, a finished, where points get awarded. And next to each of these things is this very simple shorthand that lets us trigger the functions that we need. And this is really key because like I want a very dynamic way of controlling the very powerful, multifaceted way that this app is running. And I want to be able to do it from one place where I can say, okay, hey, at this queue, once we get to like the finished state, I want to strobe all the LEDs, or like I want to play this sound effect, or whatever it is, you know? That is pretty essential, I would say, when you're trying to make something that is like this, which is a show, but it's a game, and you kind of need to like have everything flowing together. So if I like go here and I do the first cue, it's just waiting for the host to hit next. If I hit next, they go, this is going to test your teamwork. So we get next, and then teamwork comes up. Your brain work, your pure cosmic love. You know, and then we're going to get started and introduce the teams. And first up, we have this is how,
zoom out, get to the scoreboard. Let's see who's on top. It was Horns that won that first round. They're going to get the points. They're going to move to first place, and then the Horns are taunting everybody in the room, and everybody who's on Horns is like, you know, they're So the listener events, that was sort of what I was just talking about before, where it's like to move through these events, the queue system needs to be able to listen not just to a host button next event, but it might be listening to a round timer that expires, or it might be listening to like a team getting the question right, and that's where like this thing here, these listener events, you know, it's dive complete, go to next, game finished, go next, return done, go next, or post button. That kind of like balance is really good. We needed to build that as we call it. And then the second thing on project scale is a way that you can collaborate with people that are not you to build it. So this is a big project with a lot of different functionality, and I was working with some options how to pull and build it. And we broke down the like elements of the project into all these like little granular constituent parts, and used this tool here. Let me dive in and do like a little panel view. Use this tool here, and we were syncing everything between us using Dropbox. You know, I think a lot of people have used Git to do touch designer work together, and you know, we all run into the same problem, which sounds like it's about to be solved, which is that, you know, when you submit your code to something like Git, there's no way to diff and understand what changed between your toe or your tox. And, you know, because we were using Dropbox, it was also just sort of like a list of toes and toxes. But this was a way that we could sort of like mirror the architecture of the app into a folder structure on Dropbox, and then have a check-in system where we can have branches for each of our toxes. We can have different ways of sort of like committing changes with comments, and then I can see who worked on it, and then I'll get a notification on my side of the app and say, oh, look, like someone just made an update to the like QuizBox database. I should import the latest commit, and then now I'm up to date and I can see the change. And then as well, we have this global recall system, which allows us to import different types of pieces and toxes depending on the preset of the show itself. So it's a Halloween show. I can then say, go to the Halloween branch for the visuals in this game, and then when I hit global recall Halloween, it'll pull in that specific tox, and that can all just happen like for the operator when they want to load stuff in. So this kind of like works both of those ways. It's really, really handy as well. But it'll be even better when all that diffing and you know, ASCII stuff starts to come into play. So please, soon. Thank you. But yeah, if y'all are around in New York City, it's running on the weekends here. This is the website, 1000boxes.game. Just go here. You can buy tickets, play to win, lose your mind. It's really fun for private events. Go